The best of Money Matters. The Big Story.
Welcome to The Big Story. I'm Hongbin, Jeong. In the past few weeks, U.S. President Donald Trump announced a $100,000 annual fee for H-1B visas, which changed the global flow of skilled workers. The move turns what was once a lottery-driven system into one where access is determined by who can pay the highest price, showing a strong signal about America's openness to international talent. Luckily for Singaporeans, the change does not affect the H-1B visa, providing a more predictable road to work in the U.S. Beyond this, Singapore itself may gain an edge. With stable visa policies, long-term pathways like the One Pass, it has increasingly positioned itself as an attractive destination for global talent seeking security and opportunity. So, does the U.S. visa overhaul make Singapore a more attractive option for skilled workers? And how can Singapore leverage its stable visa policies and long-term pathways to remain competitive in the global talent race? Well, joining us today to tell us more is Sumit, Agarwal, who's a professor of finance, real estate, and economics at NUS Business School and managing director of Sustainable and Green Finance Institute at NUS. Hi, Professor. Welcome back to the show.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you so much for joining us. Well, Professor, how does this move by Trump shape not just migration, but where the next wave of business breakthrough happens?
Yeah, that's a very important point. See, if you raise the frictions to bring in talent, for example, fees, entry restriction, and also processing uncertainties, firms will not just wait around. They will re-optimize. The near-term effect is fewer team collaborations in the U.S. In the medium term, this will also affect R&D promotion within the U.S., analytics, and also building long-term capabilities of America. And what I see is other countries like Canada, the UK, parts of Southeast Asia, India, who are now making it much more friendly for talent to flow in, will then end up benefiting. For example, shifts in Indian global capacity centers will actually increase job opportunities for people within India.
Well, do you think that the U.S. risks losing its edge in attracting top global talent if it makes entry more difficult, even if the intent is to protect domestic workers?
That is true. I mean, clearly the answer is yes. Historically, we have seen the U.S. won because they lowered the barriers for top talent and matching them with capital. So U.S. has this deep capital markets that match the talent, and those guys started unicorns and companies, and that allowed the U.S. to grow enormously. But now you're making entry very difficult through H-1B visa and $100,000 fee that is tagged along to that. That will hurt the U.S. to grow, and it may help the domestic labor market, but that's very uncertain.
Okay. Well, other governments, they look like they're moving quickly to make themselves more attractive. Canada has introduced its global talent stream with approvals in as little as 2 weeks. The UK has launched its high potential individual visa to draw up top graduates, and China rolled out the K visa today to attract early career STEM talent. So with more countries, introducing faster and more flexible visa options, do you think this opens up real competitiveness against the U.S.? Will, global talent start looking beyond America and seek opportunities elsewhere?
Clearly. I mean, you couldn't be more right on this. And you can see why these countries did it. Because they realize now it is more difficult to enter America. And if they make it easier for talent to flow into their countries, they will steal away the same talent that has grown the U.S. and actually helped America to become the place where unicorns are actually built and developed, companies that actually do more than $100 billion. So they will steal away a lot of this business in the next 5 to 10 years.
Okay, so if more talent does shift away from the U.S., how might that boost the economies of these countries? Does it mean the U.S. could ultimately be at a loss?
In the short run, I think you will see gains in services, exports, and more patents being filed outside the U.S. Okay, think about Canada's Tech Hub and India's GCC. Over time, we will start seeing more positive spillovers in the local markets. think about Southeast Asia, both with China, Singapore, and India allowing this, all the other countries in the neighborhood like Vietnam, Indonesia, and all these countries will also end up benefiting. But the immediate beneficiaries will be these countries who are opening up to market to that talent.
What about Singapore then? I mean, Singapore has long been praised as a regional business and innovation hub. Can it position itself as a leading destination to attract global talent as well?
For sure. The caveat is that Singapore can't outmuscle on the market side. I mean, we are a small country, but Singapore does have the brand name universities. I mean, if you look at within Asia, Singapore has two of the most recognized universities, NTU and NUS, and that will attract a lot of talent that would go to, say, Harvard or MIT. Now those students are saying, why am I going there? Because after MIT, I will not get a job. It will be very difficult. Let me go to a NUS or NTU, and then I will find jobs either in Singapore or actually in countries nearby. So if you think about the overseas network and expertise pass, the one pass that Singapore has to offer, that will now essentially attract a lot more students coming to Singapore. And this will also essentially help spouses to get, letters of consent that will help mid-career professionals who are in these countries who are saying, look, why am I here? Let me go to Singapore. This will actually help my family as well.
I mean, definitely. And if you go to NUS, we'll have professors like you, Professor Sumit Agarwal. Well, other than, having such top universities right here on the little red dot, what else is Singapore's competitive edge, you think?
Okay, let me go maybe two or three. First, I think it's the regulatory clarity and speed. What do I mean? Transparent criteria like one pass, salaries, and what are the routes that people can then use to kind of see a future in Singapore. Second is that Singapore is very family friendly. Okay, spouses on dependent paths can work, which is very good for mid-career households. And finally, I think Singapore has this platform effect. The corporations can come in, they can set up their regional headquarters. We have very strong IP regimes. There is rule of law, and really very close to the ASEAN markets that are really growing. If you think about Vietnam, Indonesia, India, China, all these are markets that are going to be the future of the world. And so Singapore can be the regional hub for talent to come here and then spring off and go to these countries.
Well, speaking of the One Pass, I mean, it offers a 5-year visa and extends work rights to dependents. How significant is this One Pass for, professionals deciding where to relocate, especially compared with countries offering shorter or less certain visa options?
Yes, that's a very good point. Look, I completely agree with you. Senior professionals, if you think about it, they value optionality and horizon. So a 5-year renewable employer portable pass with dependent work access, is really about optionality and the long horizon that they can get from Singapore. And so we will see big talent move into Singapore. Let me give you a case in point. Like after Hong Kong went through some turbulent times, many people from Hong Kong, the talent, moved to Singapore. And now we will see similar things moving away from America to places like Singapore, and mainly because of the One Pass.
Right. Well, I mean, other countries are innovating with faster approvals and new visa pathways. So how can Singapore maintain its edge in stability while also adapting to this intensifying global competition?
So that's very important for Singapore to keep the bar high. Also to keep the process clear so that everybody understands that once I enter the market, I can get the One Pass, and what are the pathways to then kind of essentially think about getting long-term visa or getting a PR in Singapore. The time it takes to process all these things is very efficient in Singapore. The other things I can think about, dual carriers and family runways and essentially you can think about not just me, my partner will benefit in the long run. I can think of entrepreneurship in Singapore. I can think about startup in Singapore. essentially a very, very conducive research environment. So all these things, I think, are a very attractive part of how Singapore will attract a very high-end talent.
All right. Well, looking ahead, if Singapore does maintain and ensures this attraction of high-skilled talent, what will it mean for Singapore's future economy?
Yeah, so as I said, look, to me, not just getting talent on a short-term basis, let's say 3 to 5 years, but making that talent permanently stick to Singapore is important. So a predictable, permanent pathway. While one path isn't a PR route, but essentially giving them a clarity on how they can think of a PR from this would be really important. How can Singapore think of doing skills multiplier, a co-funding led through upskilling for not just Singaporeans, but also the one path holders that we really value you, we really want to see you upskill yourself and be here. Also thinking about families and how to make Singapore a very conducive environment for schooling spouses so that high-end talent realizes that what U.S. has provided them, they also see the same thing in Singapore.
Some great analysis from you there. Thank you so much, Professor, for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you. That was Sumit Agarwal, Professor of Finance, Real Estate and Economics at NUS Business School and Managing Director of Sustainable and Green Finance Institute at NUS. This has been The Big Story with me, Hongbin Jeong.
Money FM 89.3